sex outside of marriage, that sort of thing. But let's not play pretend. 3% of people are waiting till they're married. That's not really common. I mean, was anyone here virgin on their wedding night? Anyone? No? Okay. So why do we play pretend? All right. So it's like...
Well, I think this gets to the heart of it. We can sit here all day and talk about what we think ought be or not ought be, but the problem is that you're not going to fix any of this without patriarchy. When we threw patriarchy out the window, we sexually liberated women. What we did was throw off a balance of power that was already there. Women historically have been, the gatekeepers of sex. Every one of us sitting at this table has twice as many female ancestors as we do male ancestors. So genetically, women had this great advantage. Then we have our youth, our fertile years, where we have tremendous sway, tremendous influence and power. And I think that's temporary on purpose. What happens when you give women equal political power and equal social power to men, and you remove the father as the head of the household, which all patriarchy means is rule by the father. When you throw that out, this is the mess you end up with that's impossible to fix, because what are we going to do about all of this out of wedlock births? And
my point is, we have all this freedom, so take the responsibility that comes with it. So if right now we have the freedom to get an abortion, doesn't matter what we want, doesn't matter what should be. I don't agree with abortion either, but right now it's legal. So if that's what we're doing, then take the responsibility of raising the kid. That's what I say.
So, do you all agree with the idea of patriarchy?
Yes.
But I mean, how would you do you?
Oh,
Pearl?
I'll put a caveat. Biblical patriarchy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like what is, but how are you? What's your view on the idea of patriarchy?
I don't think it'll ever happen in my lifetime. I think it's a good idea, but I wouldn't predict that would happen in my lifetime.
Sure. How would each of you would you define patriarchy similarly? I think Lauren, you
right, because I guess just blanketly patriarchy. I think that the father's role at the head of the household, it comes from God, and it's valid insofar as he is acting on behalf of God, trying to lead his family in a godly way. Because obviously people are gonna say, like, what about this abusive husband? Blah blah blah. It's like, all right, well, if he is not conducting himself in a manner that aligns with the way Christ treats his bride, the church, then that's actually not biblical patriarchy.
I'm going to shockingly disagree with this take.
Go for it.
Which might surprise a lot of people, because everybody knows I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm pretty serious about that. But you guys might not know there was a huge amount of membership in anti-suffrage groups. The anti-suffragists were far more popular than suffragists. Women did not want suffrage. Very few people know that, like, less than 4%, according to all of the referendums that they did at the time, women did not want it. And if you take a look at the arguments that women made for why they didn't want suffrage, why they didn't want women's liberation, they said, you're charging us with something we cannot do. So we cannot rule society. We cannot defend persons and property, which is supposed to be the primary role of government, to defend persons and property. If women can't do that, why give us political power? Why give us voting rights? Then we might have to get drafted. We might have to show up for jury duty, things like that. So I think to say, well, we'll let the men rule as long as they're doing it in a way that we feel is Christian or things like that is kind of beside the point, because women only have an illusion of authority right now. Basically, like if it comes down to it. So men have the monopoly on force. There's no way around that. Even if you talk about, oh, well, there's women senators or there's women presidents or there's females in the military now. At the end of the day, the people who enforce any illusion of rights, women's rights or otherwise, are going to be men. Period. End of story. Nothing you can do about that. So to say, oh, women have equal rights, they have equal rights that they have to appeal to men to enforce on their behalf. So is that actually equal? So I'm just saying, like, to have this idea that, well, we'll let the men be in charge. The men are in charge. Right now, what's been happening is they've allowed women's liberation, and we can talk about who and why.
So you're saying that at any point, if like the majority of men in government were like, yeah, women, you're done. That's it.
Yes.
We wouldn't really be able to do much about it. I don't disagree, but
if
I think
tomorrow they went, we've had enough of this little experiment, it hasn't gone so well. I think this women's rights stuff is over, and no more voting for you, and you're going to mostly be at home. If you have young children and you're a mother, you're going to be at home raising them. You're not going to be, trying to be a CEO. What would women do about that? Get mad, cry a little bit, yell? I mean, but
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I feel like politically, women certainly have a lot of power. There are a lot of guys online who refer to our current Western society as gynocentrism. Mm-hmm. But I think I see what you're saying in that because men typically are the aggressive force, if they decided to, they could stop it and women couldn't.
Right.
So I guess I'm imagining a scenario where if a bunch of, say, like Republicans came out and said, no more 19th Amendment, you would have a bunch of women saying, how dare you, we won't allow this. But I suppose the argument then is the only reason that move from a Republican would be blocked is that Democrat men would block them.
Well, that's how we got the 19th Amendment. It was actually like Gilded Age industrialist progressives, the same guys who met at the Jekyll Island Club in 1910 to draft the Federal Reserve Act, the same guys who wanted the income tax, had a vested interest in getting women out of the home and into the workforce and making them politically active.
But why is that? What was their interest?
Well, a couple of reasons. The first interest is if you're going to do an income tax, you can only tax the men's wages. Well, imagine if you can double that by getting all the women into the workforce and taxing their wages. So that's one. Two is a lot of these guys wanted this blend of socialism and capitalism that we have right now, this kind of hybrid system. And there was a lot of anti-suffrage groups that had posters, pamphlets, encyclicals. They even did debates against suffragists where they said a vote for women is a vote for socialism because the Bolsheviks in Russia were saying, we're never going to have full communism. We're never going to have true socialism unless we get women involved, give them the vote, make them workers, make them see themselves as labor units rather than mothers. So this was kind of the plan. So that's kind of how we ended up with the system we have now. So they wanted dual income tax. They wanted women in the workforce. What's the other big benefit of that? Where do the kids go all day? If mom and dad are both at work, they have to go somewhere. Oh, we magically get the compulsory education system right along this same time frame. So the kids are being indoctrinated with whatever values the government and the Department of Education want to bestow on them. So, and then the other big obvious one is cheap wages. If you were J.P. Morgan or a Cornelius Vanderbilt or a Rockefeller or a Ford and you had these huge factories and you need lots of cheap labor, you can only import so many immigrants. Better idea, take the women who are going to work for a lower wage, put them in the factories, which is exactly what we saw happen. So
I suppose with industrialization, you immediately let me pause. Go back before industrialization. Conscription became okay. I got to slow down. Obviously, conscription's been around forever. Guys were forced to fight, but it became substantially more viable to have a conscripted class when like breech loaders, muskets, and more easily loadable weapons became prominent.
Yeah.
It used to be back in the ancient days, you had a warrior class. Mm-hmm. Men who were born from the day they were born, every day trained to be fighters. And they said, these guys are going to be the fighters who defend this nation. And they had spears. But then all of a sudden they were like, this is a gun. You point it, you pull the trigger, it works. All of a sudden they were like, we could take literally anybody, hand them this, and they can fight on equal. So all of a sudden, I was reading about the fall of samurai in Japan. And this warrior class had tremendous political power that was lost the moment rifles were introduced to the country. All of a sudden, they're just like, we don't need you anymore. Yeah. Your political power is gone. So I forgot exactly where I was going with that, but
probably that it's the Industrial Revolution is what allowed feminism. If you ever wondered how come women's liberation didn't happen for 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 years before this, it's because technology is the thing that makes it possible for women to feel they're equal with men. Look at this studio. Were any of these lights, this Wi-Fi, these computers, any of this designed by women?
No.
Do the women upkeep it? Do the women build it? No, the men build this technological world that makes us think,
and it's so funny.
I can be a career woman. I can be in charge.
It's so funny because women will come on the show and say they don't need men on a microphone that men built in a building that men maintain.
And you know, I agree with that. And my counter, because I was talking about this, I have a segment we'll get to in a second. All of these women these feminists are online saying, you know, we're great inventors. Actually, I was just screwing with ChatGPT because it's super woke, and I'm trying to get it to admit reality. And it was like, men and women are completely equal and have contributed equally to society. And I'm like, I agree that's true, but tell me why. Mm-hmm. And it starts going on about great inventors. And I'm like, no, spare me this. It is strange to me that there are so many feminists that want to talk about the masculine things women have done instead of literally just being like, how about every great world leader was made by a woman? How about the fact that women are the ones who create the people in concert with men? Yes, but women. If a guy's like, I invented the light bulb, it's like, congratulations, you were created by a woman. Like, can we give women credit for being the creators of life?
No, and what's interesting is that feminists basically have masculine values. They only judge women as successful or useful when they are conforming to masculine norms.
Yes.
That's why they love the CEO, feminine girl boss. They love those female fighters. They're only proud of women when they're behaving like men, because that's where their value set comes from. They basically disregard the homemaker, anything feminine, nurturing, caring, childcare. They think of that as unimportant, which is ironically actually sexist.
So I want to pull this up. I was talking about this the other day. This is a great thread. We have Catherine Brodsky. She posted this image of this Taekwondo black belt woman doing this absolutely amazing bow staff routine. She's spinning this aluminum staff. It looks absolutely incredible. Wow, real talent there. I sincerely mean that. Look at that. Yeah. She said, if you run into her in the forest, I pity the man and the bear.
God, these women are so delusional.
She then responded, the number of unfit, unskilled men claiming they can, quote, take her merely based on the fact that they are men. Yes, men are on average stronger, but take an unfit man in a somewhat similar weight class and she's winning.
No.
So the first thing I want to say is the caveat of an unfit man in the same weight class after saying, I pity the man and the bear. So this woman, tremendous talent. I mean, no disrespect, but she's 5'1", 100 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
She has her stats are available for her, like fight record and everything. There's a reason why a man who is 6'3", raw muscle, ripped to the bone with 4 black belts will not beat a grizzly bear in a fight.
Right. Yeah.
Technique's not going to save you from a grizzly bear.
Right.
Because physical mass matters in the conflict. Yes, there's with proper grappling technique, it's known that women could force a man into a submission, but a 5 foot tall, 100-pound woman will be lifted up with one arm by probably your average guy. Okay, maybe not your average guy.
I don't even think she could take a 5'1" guy.
No, because even like pound for pound, men are still stronger.
Right.
More bone density, more muscle mass.
I mean, my husband, he's really into mixed martial arts. He does BJJ, he does boxing, and I asked him like, we have a daughter. He's like, would you put Riley in like Taekwondo or stuff like that? And he was like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, like self-defense. And he's like, no, we're just gonna get her a gun. Like, exactly. She's tiny, she's half Asian. Like, even he recognizes like for her, it's not gonna be useful. Unless you do like the Krav Maga, like you just target the eye and the balls. Is basically the most
whatever's
useful
effective
thing a woman can do.
I mean, I think women should learn self-defense, but I think the idea that women taking self-defense courses under the idea that they're going to beat a man in a refereed fist fight.
Yeah.
But looking at this Twitter thread, it's loaded with guys who are like, absolutely a trained woman would beat a man, and I'm like, I think Ronda Rousey could probably take the average guy, but even that is a maybe.
Right.
There was some unfit average guy. I can't remember the exact story, but he challenged any MMA champion woman to a fight, and they all refused to do it until finally they did. Someone finally they would be like, "I'll take him. He's nothing. I'm trained." And then at the last minute, be like, "I'm not doing it." And then finally something happened where he did like a friendly sparring match and got put in a submission, and they hugged it out or whatever. I don't think it was a real fight. The average guy is 5'8", 5'9". Actually, the scary thing is the average guy right now is 5'8", 200 pounds, which is kind of worrisome.
Chonky.
Yeah, and the same thing with average women in this country is also like 150 or something or whatever. But if you just take like the average guy who is got 5'8", and let's say 5'8", 199 pounds, how is the average woman who is what, like 5'4" or 5'3"?
Well, I think there's like Hollywood movies have contributed to this greatly because they've actually convinced women that, with just training, I could totally kick someone's butt.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough that in Western society, women are so removed from actual physical conflict, including and especially with men, that we start to believe that's true. Well, like, thank goodness all of these women are so delusional, because that means that they've actually never had to fight a man or been attacked by a man. Because if that were, heaven forbid, ever to happen, they would learn really quick that, you're not as strong as them.